AITA for refusing the loan after my wife's family used a fake signature in my name? I'm Brian, 37, and I'd been married to Claire for 7 years when this happened. For most of our marriage, I thought our biggest recurring problem was that she had a soft spot for her older brother, Derek. That description sounds harmless now. Claire was 35, and she had a habit of hearing panic in Derek's voice before he even finished saying hello. If he called during dinner, she would put down her fork and sit straighter. If he texted after 10 at night, she would check immediately. Most of the time, the emergency wasn't really an emergency. He needed to borrow a ladder. His truck was in the shop. He was short on an invoice. He had promised a customer something he couldn't deliver without extra equipment. There was always a deadline. There was always someone depending on him. There was always a reason saying no would make us cruel. For years, I helped because that seemed easier than fighting about it. I lent Derek tools and got them back weeks late, sometimes damaged. I covered a utility bill once when his business account was overdrawn. Claire and I loaned him $2,000 for payroll, which he repaid in uneven chunks over nearly a year. When I asked for a clear repayment schedule, Claire's mother, Patricia, called me a little calculating. He's family, she said. You don't need a contract for every act of kindness. I told her kindness was easier to repeat when people respected it. She laughed like I had made a joke. Claire would defend me in private, but only halfway. I know Derek can be irresponsible, she would say. But you know how Mom is. She thinks everything sounds cold if it involves numbers. That was how most disagreements ended. Claire acknowledged the problem, explained why nobody would change, and then waited for me to absorb the inconvenience. I did that more than I should have. One evening about a year before the bank meeting, I noticed a payment from our joint checking account that I didn't recognize. It was for just under $1,200 and labeled short-term balance. I asked Claire what it was. She didn't look up from the dishwasher. Derek had a vendor issue. He's paying it back Friday. You sent him money from our account without asking me. I knew you'd say yes. That isn't the same as asking. She shut the dishwasher harder than necessary. Why do you make everything so transactional? I remember standing there with a dish towel in my hand, wondering how requesting a conversation about our own money had become a character flaw. Derek did pay it back that Friday. Claire treated that as proof the method had been acceptable. I treated it as a warning and then did nothing meaningful about it. That part is on me. The bank appointment happened on a Tuesday morning. Claire had told me we needed to update some joint account paperwork because the bank had changed one of its verification procedures. She was unusually dressed up for something she described as routine. She wore a blouse she normally saved for serious meetings, and she kept checking her phone in the waiting area. Derek texted her 3 times while we sat there. I saw his name flash across the screen. Each time, she turned the phone face down. Is this about him? I asked. No. She answered too quickly. Then she squeezed my hand and said, Please don't make this a thing in front of people. I stared at her. Make what a thing? Before she could answer, a bank representative named Rebecca stepped into the lobby and called us into a small office. Rebecca was calm and professional. She confirmed our identities, clicked through several screens, and said the application was nearly ready for final confirmation. What application? I asked. Claire's fingers tightened around mine under the table. Rebecca paused. The secured business loan. I looked at Claire. She gave me a small, strained smile. Rebecca continued carefully. The application lists both of you because the proposed collateral includes joint assets. Before we proceed, I need both parties to verify the authorization. She turned her monitor slightly toward me. There was my name, my date of birth, part of my social security number, information from our accounts, uploaded documents I recognized from our home files. At the bottom was an electronic signature using my full name. I had never seen the application before. Rebecca pointed to the signature line. Before we secure this loan against your joint assets, I need you to confirm this signature. For a second, I heard nothing except the faint hum of the air vent. Claire reached for my hand again. I moved it away. That isn't my signature, I said. Rebecca's expression changed immediately. Claire leaned forward. I filled it out for him. He's been busy. Rebecca looked at me, not Claire. Did you authorize your wife to sign or submit this on your behalf? No. Claire exhaled sharply. Brian, come on. I kept my voice even. I'm not confirming a signature I didn't make. Rebecca stopped touching the keyboard. Understood. I'm going to pause the file and document that the authorization is disputed. Claire's face went pale. There's no need to use that word, she said. This is a misunderstanding between spouses. Rebecca stayed neutral. I can only record what you're telling me, sir. I asked what the loan was for. Claire answered before Rebecca could. It's for Derek's business. He has an equipment opportunity that could save the company. I looked at the requested amount on the screen. It was far beyond the small loans and favors we had argued about before. If it went bad, it wouldn't be an inconvenience. It could damage our credit and put property we own together at risk. How long has this application existed? I asked. Rebecca checked the file. The preliminary submission was made several weeks ago. Additional documents were uploaded over time. Several weeks. Claire had spent several weeks building a loan application in my name while telling me nothing. I asked Rebecca to give me written confirmation that the file was paused and that I disputed the signature. She said she would begin the internal process and have the appropriate department contact me. Claire didn't speak again until we were outside. The moment we reached the parking lot, she turned on me. You humiliated me. I unlocked the car, but didn't open the door. You brought me to a bank under false pretenses and asked me to approve a loan with a signature you put there. I was trying to get you in the room so we could discuss it seriously. You told me we were updating account paperwork. Because if I told you it was about Derek, you would have refused before hearing the details. That was my right. She folded her arms. You were going to sign eventually. That sentence changed the whole conversation. I had expected panic. Maybe a tearful explanation. Maybe a claim that she misunderstood an online form. Instead, she sounded irritated that the plan had failed. No, I said. You were counting on me being too embarrassed to say no. Her eyes filled with anger. Derek has employees. Families depend on those jobs. He already put down money on the equipment because the supplier needed a commitment. With what money? She looked away. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Claire, with what money? Part of it came from us, but it was temporary. How much? She opened the passenger door. We're not doing this in a parking lot. The drive home was mostly silent. Her phone kept buzzing in the cup holder. Derek. Patricia. Derek again. When we got home, I went to the kitchen and put my keys on the counter. Claire stood near the sink, still holding her purse. I want every email, message, application, document, and bank communication connected to this loan, I said. She laughed once, but there was no humor in it. You're treating me like a criminal. I'm asking what was done with my name. I was trying to protect my family. I'm your family too. She flinched, then hardened again. You don't understand what Derek is facing. I understand that you submitted a loan application in my name without asking. I only filled it out because I knew you'd make this harder than it needed to be. That is not a defense. She told me she needed time to calm down. I told her I needed the records. Instead of giving them to me, she went upstairs. About 20 minutes later, I found that passwords had been changed on 2 shared online services we had used for storing household documents. One was connected to the email address Claire had used for bills and financial paperwork. I texted her from downstairs. Anything about money, the loan, or my name goes in writing from now on. Please send me all records connected to the application. She replied almost immediately. I can't believe you are doing this to us over paperwork. I saved the message. Then I called the bank. I spoke to the fraud and dispute department, explained what had happened, and asked them to document that I hadn't authorized the application or the electronic signature. I also requested written confirmation and asked that the bank preserve the full loan file, including submission history, uploaded documents, login records, device information, and communications. The representative was careful not to promise an outcome. She did confirm a dispute record had been opened and that the file would remain on hold. After that, I checked my credit reports. No new loan had been funded, but there had been recent activity consistent with the application process. I placed credit freezes with the major bureaus and changed passwords on every financial account I personally controlled. Then I opened our joint checking statements. It took less than 15 minutes to find the transfer. $18,000 had left the account 3 weeks earlier. The description said family adjustment. I stared at it until the words stopped looking real. Our joint account wasn't empty. Claire hadn't put us in immediate danger of missing a mortgage payment or utility bill. That almost made it worse. She had counted on the transfer being buried among ordinary expenses because she knew I didn't inspect every transaction every week. I searched the recipient details and found the money had gone to an equipment vendor connected to Derek's business. That was when this stopped being a bad decision and started looking like a plan. I sent Claire a screenshot and one question. Did you authorize this transfer? She didn't answer for nearly an hour. Then she wrote, yes, it was a deposit, not a gift. Derek will repay it when the financing clears. I replied, the financing I never approved? She called me 3 times. I didn't pick up. Her next message said, please stop acting like I stole from you. It was joint money, and I had legal access to the account. I wrote back, access is not consent. Send me the loan records. She stopped responding. The next afternoon, I received a call from a man who introduced himself as a representative for the equipment supplier. He sounded confused. Derek gave us your number as a secondary financial contact, he said. We're trying to confirm when the remaining funds will be released. I'm not a financial contact for Derek's business. There was a pause. He said the family financing had been approved. It hasn't. I never agreed to finance or guarantee anything. The man became much more formal after that. I asked him to send me anything showing how my name had been used. He said he would check what he could provide. An hour later, an email arrived. The chain went back more than a month. Derek had told the supplier that I was backing the purchase. He described me as a committed family investor. Claire had been copied on several messages. In one exchange, the supplier asked whether all owners of the proposed collateral had approved the structure. Claire replied that the final confirmation was a formality. Farther down the chain was an email from Claire to Derek that appeared to have been forwarded accidentally during one of his replies. Once he sees how many people are depending on this, he'll sign. He always folds when it becomes a family emergency. I read that line 4 times. Below it, Derek had written, Mom says get him in front of the bank person. He won't make a scene there. Another message from Patricia said, do not ask him like it is optional. Explain what is already at stake. Compassion has to be stronger than his need to control everything. They hadn't asked me for help. They had built a situation where my refusal was supposed to look like cruelty. I forwarded the entire chain to a secure email account Claire couldn't access. I downloaded our statements, saved screenshots of the messages, and wrote a timeline while the dates were fresh. That night, Claire came downstairs after avoiding me for most of the day. She found me at the dining table with my laptop open. What are you doing? She asked. Preserving records. Her face changed. Did someone tell you to do that? Not yet. Brian, this is our marriage. Why are you making it sound like a legal case? Because you made my identity part of a loan file. She sat across from me. You know I wasn't trying to hurt you. I believe you were trying to help Derek. Then why are you acting like I'm some stranger who hacked your accounts? Because you knew I would say no, and you decided my answer didn't matter. She rubbed both hands over her face. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. Show me the records. I can't. Why? Because Derek said some things when he was panicking, and Mom got involved, and you'll take every ugly sentence literally. I already have the supplier emails. She froze. I watched the exact moment she realized I knew. Which emails? The ones where you said I always fold. Her mouth opened, then closed. That was frustration. No, that was strategy. She began to cry, but even then, her first concern was Derek. If this deal falls apart, he loses everything. I closed the laptop. You already decided what I was allowed to lose. The next morning, I contacted an attorney named Owen. A friend had used him during a complicated financial separation and described him as painfully direct. That description was accurate. I explained the bank meeting, the signature, the transfer, the emails, and the changed passwords. Owen didn't dramatize any of it. First, he said, don't threaten anyone. Don't delete anything. Don't empty joint accounts. Don't stop paying obligations you're responsible for. Protect your identity and preserve evidence. I told him I had frozen my credit and opened a separate account for future income. That's different from depriving your spouse of access to money she reasonably relies on, he said. Keep the distinction clear. He advised me to document essential shared expenses, continue paying them, and avoid making new transfers from the joint account without written explanation. He also told me to move future direct deposits into my separate account and contribute to necessary household bills in a traceable way. Then he asked the question I had been avoiding. Are you trying to protect your marriage, or are you preparing to leave it? I don't know. You need to know soon. You can focus on both financial protection and marital repair for a while, but they can't stay on parallel tracks forever. I hated him for being right. By that evening, Patricia had called me 6 times. I finally answered once. She didn't ask what happened at the bank. She didn't ask whether Claire and I were okay. She said, "A good husband doesn't let one signature destroy a family. One signature didn't create this." Claire was desperate. She planned it for weeks. "Because you make people afraid to ask you for help." I said no to a loan I never agreed to. "You didn't even hear Derek out. He told a supplier I was backing him before speaking to me." Her voice sharpened. "His employees could lose their jobs. Does that mean nothing to you? It means Derek made promises before he had financing. You always have to be right." "No. I have to be allowed to say yes or no when my name and assets are involved." She switched to a softer tone. "Brian, marriage is about compassion. Then show me some for what your daughter did." She hung up. Derek was less subtle. His first text called me vindictive. His second said I was tanking his business over a fight with my wife. His third threatened legal action for interfering with a signed equipment deal. I replied once, "Anything about money, the loan, or my name goes in writing from now on. If you believe you have a legal claim against me, state it clearly by email." He did. The email was reckless, angry, and useful. He admitted he had entered the equipment agreement based on Claire's assurance that I would approve the financing. He also admitted the deposit came from our joint account and that the supplier had been told I was backing the deal. I forwarded it to Owen. Claire accused me of setting traps. "I'm asking people to say clearly what they already claim is true," I told her. "You know Derek doesn't think before he writes. That is not my responsibility." Over the next several days, I sent formal written notices to the bank and the supplier. To the bank, I disputed the signature and authorization, requested preservation of the full application record, and stated that I had not consented to act as a borrower, guarantor, or sponsor. To the supplier, I wrote, "I have not consented to act as guarantor, co-borrower, investor, or financial sponsor for Derek or his business. Any statement suggesting otherwise was made without my authorization. I didn't tell the supplier what to do. I didn't threaten Derek's contract. I only corrected the false information involving me." The supplier responded that the transaction would be reevaluated because proof of funds and financing support were no longer reliable. Derek called within minutes. I let it go to voicemail. "You smug piece of," he began, before launching into a 2-minute rant about employees, contracts, and betrayal. I saved that too. Claire began telling me I was using money to control her because I moved my future income into a separate account. I showed her a spreadsheet of the household expenses I was still paying. Housing, utilities, insurance, groceries. The automatic payments hadn't stopped. "I am not cutting you off," I said. "I am preventing new commitments from being made in my name. You're treating me like I can't be trusted. You can't be trusted with my financial identity right now." She looked like I had slapped her. I didn't enjoy saying it. That was simply the truth. About 2 weeks after the bank appointment, Claire asked for a formal meeting. She said Rebecca would attend to explain what was happening with the loan file. Derek wanted to be there. Claire also wanted Owen present because, in her words, she was tired of me hiding behind legal language. Owen told me to let them speak first. The meeting took place in a plain conference room at the bank. Rebecca sat at one end of the table. Claire and Derek sat together. Owen sat beside me. Patricia wasn't invited, which didn't stop her from texting Claire repeatedly before we began. Rebecca explained that the loan couldn't move forward while authorization was disputed. She didn't accuse anyone of a crime. She didn't speculate. She simply stated that the bank had to verify consent and review how the application had been submitted. Derek immediately turned to me. "You're destroying my business because you're mad at your wife." I said nothing. He kept going. "I signed the equipment agreement because Claire told me this was handled. My supplier has frozen the order. I could lose the deposit. I could lose contracts. People are waiting for this machinery." Claire put a hand on his arm. "We all understand what's at stake." Owen glanced at me, reminding me to wait. Derek leaned forward. "All you have to do is tell the bank this was a misunderstanding. You can still decide not to take the loan, but withdraw the dispute." Rebecca corrected him. "It is a signature dispute, and you have stated you did not authorize it." The bank can't simply erase that statement. Claire looked at me. Brian, nobody is asking you to lie. Just say I had permission to prepare the paperwork. You didn't. I handle our documents all the time. You don't sign my name to secured loans all the time. She lowered her voice. Please, we can fix the marriage separately. That was when I opened the printed pages Owen and I had brought. There was no dramatic folder. Just a small stack of documents. The bank's confirmation, account statements, the supplier email chain, Derek's written threat, and screenshots of Claire's messages. I placed the bank's timeline first. The preliminary application was submitted on a day I wasn't home, I said. The login record came from a device Claire uses. The documents were uploaded over the next 3 weeks. The signature timestamp doesn't match any access by me. Claire stared at the table. I placed the account statement beside it. $18,000 left our joint account before I knew the loan existed. Then I placed the supplier email chain down. Derek told the supplier I was the financial backer. Claire said my final approval was a formality. Derek shifted in his chair. That was sales language. It was false. I turned to Claire. Here is the email where you said I always fold when something becomes a family emergency. Her eyes filled with tears. I was under pressure. And here is Derek saying your mother told you to get me in front of the bank because I wouldn't make a scene. Derek looked at Claire as if the evidence were her fault for allowing it to exist. I placed the last page down. It was Claire's text from the night before. I didn't ask because I knew you would say no, and I thought once everything was ready you would understand. The room stayed quiet. I looked at her. You didn't make one desperate mistake. You built a plan around the belief that my consent didn't matter. Claire whispered, I was trying to save my brother. You used my name to do it. Derek pushed back from the table. This is ridiculous. You're talking like she stole your identity. You're married. Owen spoke for the first time. Marriage does not make one spouse's consent imaginary. Rebecca then stated that the loan couldn't proceed. The disputed authorization would remain under separate review, and the bank would continue handling the matter according to its procedures. Derek stood up. So that's it. You're just going to let my company die? I looked at him. You signed a deal using money and backing you didn't have. You could have saved it. I would have been trapped by it. He left the room without another word. Claire stayed seated. She looked smaller than I had ever seen her. For 1 second, I wanted to reach for her hand. Then I remembered her reaching for mine at the bank, not to comfort me, but to control what I did next. The supplier canceled Derek's equipment order a few days later. The deposit agreement allowed them to keep a portion because he had failed to provide proof of financing by the required date. He also owed a cancellation charge for custom work already started. The $18,000 wasn't all lost, but a significant part of it was tied up or gone. Without the equipment, Derek couldn't fulfill 2 contracts he had already accepted. One client walked away. Another reduced the work. His employees didn't all lose their jobs immediately, but he cut hours and eventually let several people go. I didn't feel good about that. I also didn't accept responsibility for promises Derek made based on a loan I had never approved. Patricia called once after the deal collapsed. Her voice was exhausted instead of angry. You could have protected this family. Not by pretending I agreed. Claire may face serious consequences. Claire had several chances to correct the record. She was scared. So was I. Patricia was quiet. Then she said, You have always held yourself apart from us. That almost made me laugh. I had loaned them money, moved furniture, fixed appliances, picked Derek up when his truck broke down, covered bills, and kept quiet through years of boundary violations. What she meant was that I had never surrendered the final boundary completely. I'm done discussing this by phone, I said. After that, Patricia mostly stopped contacting me. The family pressure shifted toward Claire. Derek blamed her for promising too much. Patricia blamed her for mishandling the bank meeting. Relatives who had been told I had volunteered to help began asking why the story had changed. Claire finally understood what it felt like to be made responsible for everyone else's decisions. About a week later, she asked me to sit with her in the living room. The house was unusually quiet. The television was off. A mug of tea sat untouched in front of her. She had been sleeping in the guest room since the bank meeting. I want to save our marriage, she said. I believed she meant it in that moment. I told her there were conditions before I would even consider trying. First, she had to give the bank and the supplier a complete written statement explaining that I had never approved the loan, the signature, the transfer, or the claims made in my name. Second, our finances would remain separated, with only a limited joint account for shared expenses. Third, we would attend counseling. Fourth, she would never make a financial promise, sign a document, transfer joint funds, or offer my help without explicit agreement. Fifth, Derek would have no access to our accounts, documents, property, or credit. Finally, there had to be a written repayment plan for the money taken from our joint account, including whatever portion Derek couldn't return. Claire listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked, "Do I have to name Derek and Mom in the written statement?" "Yes. That could ruin him. He already used my name. The bank could pursue this. I am not asking you to exaggerate. I am asking you to tell the truth." She started crying. I said I want to save us. And this is what accountability looks like. Can't we do counseling first? No. Counseling can't begin with a shared lie. She shook her head. You don't understand. If I put everything in writing, Derek will never forgive me. That was the moment the marriage ended for me. Not at the bank. Not when I saw the transfer. Not even when I read the email about how I always folded. It ended when Claire was finally given a clear choice between protecting our marriage and protecting Derek from the truth, and she still chose Derek. I leaned back in the chair. You're still asking me to protect him from the consequences of what you did to me. That isn't fair. It is exactly what you are asking. She pressed both hands over her face. So 7 years just ends like this? No, I said. 7 years ended when my consent became paperwork to get around. The next morning, I called Owen and told him to move forward with the separation. We handled it quietly. I didn't empty accounts or lock Claire out of basic household money. We documented every shared obligation. Future income remained separate. Necessary bills continued to be paid. The unauthorized transfer and the resulting losses became part of the financial settlement discussions. Claire moved out several weeks later. Packing took 2 days. There was no screaming, no smashed dishes, no dramatic family confrontation in the driveway. She folded clothes into boxes while I worked in another room. At one point, she found an old photo from our 4th anniversary and sat on the edge of the bed staring at it. I did love you, she said. I know. I still do. I know that too. She looked up at me. Then how can you be so calm? Because yelling won't change what happened. She cried again. I went downstairs and gave her space. The divorce took time, but the decision didn't change. Derek's business continued shrinking. He sold off other equipment, lost his original location, and eventually closed. Patricia stopped calling the loan situation a misunderstanding after Derek began blaming Claire openly. From what I heard, the same family loyalty Claire had sacrificed our marriage to protect did not protect her for long. Months after she moved out, Claire called me. I almost didn't answer, but I did. She said she was sorry. Not the vague kind of apology she had offered before. This time, she named what she had done. She said she used my documents, allowed Derek to present me as a backer, signed my name electronically, transferred our money, and helped create public pressure so I would feel unable to refuse. She admitted she had told herself it was temporary because she expected the loan to succeed. Then she said her family blamed her for the collapse. Derek says I should have handled you better, she said. Mom says I should have stopped him from signing the equipment deal. I closed my eyes. Even after everything, they were still talking about me like a problem Claire had failed to manage. I'm sorry they're doing that to you, I said. Do you think we could ever try again? I took a long breath before answering. No. She was quiet. I'm not that person anymore, she said. I hope that's true. But it doesn't matter. It matters for you. It does not rebuild what we had. She started crying softly. I hated hearing it. I didn't hate her. That would have been easier. I didn't leave because a loan failed, I said. I left because my wife planned around my consent not matching. She said she understood. This time, I think she did. We ended the call without anger. I still think about the smaller moments I ignored. The damaged tools. The late repayments. The vague account labels. Claire promising my help before asking. Patricia calling boundaries selfish. Every incident looked survivable on its own, so I survived each one and called that peace. It wasn't peace. It was training. They learned that if they created enough urgency, I would absorb the cost. Claire learned that my hesitation was temporary. I learned to distrust my own discomfort because speaking up made the room unpleasant. Freezing my credit didn't feel victorious. Reporting the signature didn't feel satisfying. Ending my marriage didn't make me feel powerful. It made me feel safe again. That was enough. Peace isn't worth it if the price is becoming someone else's blank check. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.